Welcome to the ultimate podcast experience with conversations about politics, religion, finances, and the meaning of life, and all the other subjects and stories that Nana told you not to bring to the kitchen table, and a whole lot more. Join our hosts, James the Red, You'll Be Back, and Sam the slippery smooth producer as they settle the ultimate question: have y'all heard about this?
There's no good way to get back home from Las Vegas.
I mean, just break my leg.
But you know what it smells like.
I was just like, if they get the ring in there,
Are we not going to communicate on the podcast anymore?
probably can make some good money doing that.
You're not even putting any thought into it.
No one died. There was no legs flying. It was terrible. We were so bored.
And his name's John Cena.
Okay, forget it. I'm sorry I even brought that up. Golly. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Happy
guys.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
It feels like Monday to me, and I'll tell you why here in a bit.
It does to me too, and I'm glad James texted me last night, or texted all of us, because I might have forgotten this was podcast day.
This
So that
was
good. That
the
a good
last
reminder.
thing on my mind.
I
last
tell you
night.
what,
It was actually me too.
Sam, if you forget it's podcast day one more time,
No, I mean I would. I think we should always just do the text to confirm everybody remembers it's podcast.
it was so
Yeah.
funny. I was tired last night. It was 10:30. I was laying, like not in bed, but just kind of like laying on the bed, getting ready to, start transitioning to go to bed. And I looked over at Tara and I said, I haven't heard anything from Yule and from Sam. She goes, well, why don't you just assume that you're going? And I'm like, what if I just show up there and no one's there? And she's like, well, at least you've done your part.
Had I not gotten that text, that would have been a real possibility. And I'll tell you why. I slept yesterday from 12:30 p.m.
Okay,
to 4:30 p.m.
that's awesome.
You ever do that on a Monday?
No. I think I would, it's got kind of like one of those after church, you take a nap and you feel really tired when you take a nap and you wake up and you feel like just garbage after that. That's what that would have felt like.
Let me tell you why I had to do that. Some members of the company that I'm with and I went to Las Vegas to work a large medical conference. And there's no good way to get back home from Las Vegas, plus you're 3 hours behind. And so we decided it'd be a great idea. And in hindsight, it really was. It's just hard to deal with. But we took the red-eye midnight flight out of Las Vegas to come home. So we were basically on a plane from Vegas to Atlanta for approximately 4 hours, from the hours of midnight to 4 a.m. Vegas time, which was the equivalent of midnight to 3 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Right, yeah.
Eastern time. Land in Atlanta with approximately a 2-hour layover. Get on the plane to Chattanooga for 24 minutes, and I slept the whole way. I just put on my white noise. I don't even hear them say, good morning, Which, by the way, if it's before 9 o'clock, can we just eliminate the chatter over the microphone from the cockpit? We've all been here. If there's one, I think what they should say is, if you've never been on a plane, raise your hand. And if that one person raises their hand, they can go and have a private conversation with them.
They whisper in their ear, we're now at 30,000 feet.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you for flying, all this stuff.
That's true. I don't think a lot of first-time flyers or tourists are taking the red eye out of Las Vegas.
So the reason we did that, though, was I knew if I could get back here on Monday, I could at least be productive today. Whereas had I did all that travel during the day yesterday,
yeah,
I would have been wiped out still. So thankfully, I got home and I was safe. So thank the Lord for that. And had a good, productive conference. It was very well received. It set up some great things. We may be going to Israel.
No way.
Yeah. Had a physician there who was like,
What?
we got to talk. So
No,
not going to disclose any of this product stuff. It's not a sales thing, but
I will
just a really
say
good thing.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're doing good work, Yule.
Thank you, man.
We'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. But I'll tell you what, I was also distracted a little bit yesterday. Some really, really sad news coming out of Starkville, Mississippi. Coach Mike Leach, Mississippi State's head coach, we all know him as the pirate coach or the man of, I wouldn't say one-liners, but Mike Leach has a fun way of telling you things. But Mike Leach has suffered a massive heart attack, and I do not think, from what I'm reading, and I don't want to be gossipy here because it's a bit of speculation, but I'm getting the impression that he may not live.
Is it a died suddenly kind of thing?
No, he
or I know he hasn't died yet, but is it? You know what I'm saying?
Apparently, he was labored breathing and had a massive heart attack. And Mike does not. If you look at him on the sideline, he doesn't look like an extremely healthy person to start with.
Yeah.
But so who knows if this is a died suddenly thing or if this is a just a chronic condition. And heart disease prior to COVID, it was bad. It's even worse now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently, just prayers out for him and his family and the doctors treating him, that should there be a miraculous outcome, there's no person in the United States of America who could tell that story better than him. He's such a funny guy, and but I don't think that, from what reports I'm seeing, I don't think it's a good prognosis.
What Mike
Leach.
Mike Leach, not Mike Lee,
the pirate coach.
Okay.
You guys, y'all don't know.
I've never heard of this guy.
Listen, I gave up on this.
You guys,
sports when I grew up.
All right, so
I loved football.
All right,
when I was a child.
Grew up.
let me just go and Google Mike Leach. Just get some YouTube out, but he's got probably a top 10 things that he does and says. But I'll give you two of them that are just classic. You know how Nick Saban, for example, when people are almost afraid to ask him a question in the presser because he gets so snippy and mad and you're stupid for asking that kind of thing. Well, Mike Leach is the polar opposite. So, as an example, around Halloween, one of the sideline reporters at the end of the game says, "What kind of Halloween candy do you like?" And he talks for 3 minutes. Well, these are great and these are nasty and I'd never eat those, and just on and on. And then another guy, and this is I think a couple of years ago, but a reporter I think was about to get married, and he said, "Coach Leach, do you have any marriage tips for me?" I think he talked for 6 minutes, and it was like, he goes, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but it was so funny. You have to watch it on your own. He's like, "Look, here's what's going to happen. Y'all are going to start getting ready for this wedding," and she's going to say, "What color invitation do you like? You like the blue or the tan?" And you're going to say, "Well, I don't care." And then she's going to say, "Well, what kind of cake do you want?" And you're going to say, "Well, I don't care because I don't care." And then he's going to say, "Well, what kind of tuxedos are the groomsmen going to wear?" And you're going to say, "I don't care." To which she's going to say, "I'm going to have to do all this on my own. You don't even care about our marriage." So you're going to tell her, "Hey, start over." And she's going to say, "Okay, do you like the blue or the tan?" He goes, "Well, I think I like the blue." She goes, "Well, I think I like the tan." And you're going to say, "Well, then let's go with the tan then." She goes, "You're not even putting any thought into it." All right, so that's just a teaser of how that. Man. He goes on like that for 5 or 6 minutes, and it is. It's just comedy gold. So he's an American treasure. So prayers with him and his family right now, and we need more stories like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Mississippi State, is that what you said?
That's correct.
Well, hope he.
It kind of reminds me. I know it's not the same as like a Paul Harvey, but just those national treasures with that ability to weave a story like that. Like, I remember Paul Harvey telling the story about this guy who was driving, one night, and he'd been living a rough life, and he was out in somewhere out like in Colorado, and he'd gotten into a bunch of snow, and his car wasn't handling well. Long story short, after a while, he drove his car right off the road, and the impact, he hit a pole, and the impact just knocked him out because it was just such a forceful impact. And he was laying there, and he woke up, and he saw this sign, and it was like a flashing sign, and it had in the words, "This is," and then it was Shell. Like, this is Shell. It was a Shell gas station. But when he hit the sign, the S on Shell, just kind of like you could see it swinging and it just fell. So he's laying there passed out in a coma, and he wakes up and he sees flashing letters says, "This is hell."
This is hell.
just thought that was a funny story.
my
The
God.
guy was like, "Oh no!"
I didn't know there'd be a sign. Oh me. So,
Well, we got a little bit of housekeeping.
uh-oh.
In a good way. So we just launched the new social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter. So HYHAT podcast is on both platforms.
Yeah, let me give
you're
you
kind
our-
of running the Twitter. I don't know
Let me
what
give
the
you our
Twitter
Twitter
is.
handle. It's crazy. No sooner than I had that Twitter handle up, our first follow was from Elon Musk.
Well, he already gave us a review.
That's
Well,
true.
he said, thanks for finally getting on my platform. You're great Americans who tell the truth.
Yes.
I mean,
Right on.
there you go.
Right on.
Truer words were never spoken.
of course, that entire thing I just said was a lie. But hold on, I'm looking this up for a reason because I want y'all to know our Twitter handle is. Are you ready for this? At the HYHAT podcast.
Ooh, I like that. Was
Because
HYHAT
apparently-
podcast taken?
Apparently, HYHAT podcast was taken. HYHAT podcast 1 was taken. So we're getting some traction. People are trying to get our
What?
domain. Yeah,
Bunch of
yeah.
posers.
seriously.
They're going
What
to try
in
to
the
sell
world?
it to us, but I actually like the way better.
The HYHAT podcast.
And HYHAT is spelled HYHAT.
Have y'all heard about this?
Have y'all heard about
That's it.
That's it.
So come give us a follow. Right now we
Yeah,
have one
don't-
follower.
We don't
and
name the podcast nearly enough.
We don't.
Hey, have y'all heard about this?
Right now
I
we-
went bird hunting this week.
we have one follower
Oh, you
right
did?
now
Yeah, we did, yeah.
on Twitter.
You have one follow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's me.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
my Twitter handle follows that. So we're gonna have to push that one out a little bit better and get some
Yeah.
content.
So Facebook, I made us a Facebook, and it's just HYHAT podcast. So HYHAT. And I made a promise on there that I'm going to make good on that for episode 20, which is the one we're recording right now, is that I would shout out the people that had liked and followed. So we give them a little shout out. So we got Caleb Spikestra. Love you, man. Actually ran into him the other day. He's one of my friends that lives kind of out west far. So good to see you the other day, buddy. And Kara and Joel. Or
All right.
Joel. So Kara Ratcliffe and Joel Atkins.
Nice.
I actually know all of these people, but
Well, cool.
I appreciate you guys.
Well, keep on following, keep on sharing. Tell everybody you know about the HYHAT podcast. It literally is the best podcast in America.
It's pretty good.
I mean, lots
Yeah.
of people say that.
I think so. I say
Yeah.
it.
Did I ever tell you guys about living in Tuscaloosa? And it was when Rick and Bubba came to the local radio station. I guess they were going to be. I can't remember if they were in Birmingham or I think they were, but it was a Tuscaloosa station that was picking them up. And when they took that station over, like I think they literally purchased that station
Wow.
to then become. That's going to be theirs now, and it was like a country station that they took over, and so the way they introed their foray into the market was they played Sweet Home Alabama on loop for 3 days.
I think I heard about this.
And so every time it would like end, like Rick, Bubba, we're Rick and Bubba, we're here, and hey, we got another great song for you. And every time it was the same one. And my point is,
That's awesome.
here I am. I've never heard of these guys ever,
Oh,
and now they're just. I mean, they're a staple. They've been on the radio. I mean, that was in 1998, probably.
that's amazing.
And that's that. I'm saying that's basically us.
Well, what they did was they just attached their name to the greatest song to ever come out of Alabama. And
Ain't that
people,
sweet?
people just associated the two. So let's just say HYHAT over and over. HYHAT podcast. HYHAT podcast.
I don't know if that translates.
It's gonna be like a military experiment from the 1950s. You're listening to HYHAT podcast. Don't
Those
get out
guys-
of your seat.
Those guys are funny, but they can get old too, man.
Well, it's the same
Golly.
thing like the John Boy and Billy show. It just that shit gets old.
Sometimes that, like when they do their little skits where everybody has a part, that can be funny. Those
Yeah.
are well done.
I listened to some of those on the way in this morning.
Have you ever heard that? There was like a radio prank, and I think it was part of a show. I can't remember whether I found it was just fake all around, but it was like supposed to be a prank, and it was this like lady, and they're acting like they were like trying to sell a pay-per-view wrestling thing to and it's like the John Cena. Have you ever seen that?
No.
We'll have to watch that after.
I've heard that.
And she's like, yeah, because the like at one point they call her like she had like screamed at him like stop calling me like things like that. And so they call him and they're like, and she's like what? Because she knows it's the same. And they're like hello, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. She's like, and then the lady's like, yeah, I was just calling to see if you're a supporter of the military, of the like U.S. Marine Corps, and she's like, yeah, absolutely, like, because a member of our team needs your help, and his name's John Cena. And it's like,
man, the best prank calls ever are when they facilitate two Chinese restaurants to be on the phone together. like they're ordering a takeout. So like they get so they say, well, here's what I want, and as that person's repeating that order, they have another person thinking they're taking that order.
Did you used to do that when you were a kid? Like when call waiting and three-way not call waiting, but three-way calling came out, and you could actually like randomly call some friend at school, and then at the same time call somebody else and put them both together and have them talk to each other. John do that?
I still do that. I do that all the time with my iPhone.
It'd be like, hello.
All right, we're all
hello. It's like,
we're
you just called. No, you just called me. No, you just called me. No, my phone literally rang and you just called me.
It was you.
And we'd always go through the yearbook and find like, the nerdiest dudes and like they call like the cheerleaders and be like, hello. Yes, this is Sarah. It's like, yeah, this is Milton.
You need help with your homework?
I will say, we were talking about electric cars and manliness and stuff like that before we started
Yule and I
recording.
were. You were just sitting there taking it from us.
How manly electric cars are. No, but I was thinking, what initiative? I remember before texting, or at least before I had texting. No, I guess I remember before texting in general, but like I remember, man, just the thought of like having to pick up a phone and call a girl, versus like now you could like just reach out via text or something.
Oh, Sam,
that's crazy.
You don't even know, man.
You have to like pick up the.
Dude, when I was in college,
my brother could be listening.
I guess it was my reputation. I never quite could keep a girlfriend in the same town I lived in, so I would always have to have one long distance.
He's got the air quotes now. Always had one in another town.
Well, I mean, I just
She's
didn't
a model.
have one.
She's
I
on
didn't have one in
vacation
my
right now.
town. And but here's the correlation to that is, Sam, back in the day you had to pay for long distance.
Oh gosh.
And so if they weren't in the town you're in and you had to dial the area code and get them, if you were lucky, you had gotten the 10 cents a minute plan.
Oh, and you had to buy those calling cards. Remember that?
Calling cards, you could do that.
Oh, I remember that.
But we had in college we had a plan that if you called after 9 o'clock it was free.
Yes.
So it was like 9 o'clock, the circuit lit up, I had a roommate, and this is kind of funny too. My first apartment this is, I think, my second apartment in college. But either way, we had a guy named Price who was the biggest cheapskate I've ever seen. He like, if there was a cheap way to do something, Price did it. Or if he could do it without it costing money, he would do that. And he had this thing to where there were 4 of us that lived in an apartment, and we shared one phone, like one landline. So we all had our own long distance. So when the phone bill came by paper, he would get 4 highlighters, and you had to go through and highlight your long distance because you had to pay 1/4 of the base bill and then add your own long distance to it. Inevitably, Price was like, "Yep, 20 cents." And the way he would do that partially was he never had a girlfriend. Ha ha. But the truth, the funny thing was when he would travel from the Shoals area where we all lived back home, your parents always like, hey, just call me and let me know you've gotten there. So they had a thing worked out where he would call collect and had a code word. And if he gave the right code word, that just meant I'm home safely. And they would decline the call. So it never cost anybody any money to communicate.
It was the early text messages.
He's like, what's your name? Price Redbud.
Well, you know what it was? So his dad's nickname was Spider. So that was the code word. Collect call from Spider.
That's so funny.
Decline.
We have a phone here at church that it's a landline phone, but I don't think anyone even knows the number. Like, do you know the number?
It's probably the main number on because I know it when it calls in.
So one day the kids and I were here doing something, and so Everett got the idea, hey, let's prank call Mom on the church phone. She won't recognize the number. So we go up there, and I put it on speaker, and I dial the number, and
Yes.
Tara's like, hello? And I was like, hi, I'm calling about your car's extended warranty. So she just click, and she hangs up. And then
Like about your cars.
and then so we dial it right back, and she's like, hello? And I'm like, obviously, you don't care about your kid's safety. She was like, what? And then so she hung up, and we called her right back, and I called her back, and she goes, hello? And I said, you really need a car extended warranty. And she was like, who is this?
We should prank the phone company and say, listen, we've been staring at this thing. There's this box in our church. We've been staring at it for years and finally picked it up, and apparently it rang to you. I think it's a phone. What will you charge us to come get this thing?
Or just to come give us a tutorial. It's like, what do we do with this?
It's funny. I did that at the hotel I was staying at. I picked up the it was a wireless kind of like receiver. Even though it was on a base phone, I picked it up and I'm like, put it in my ear, and there was no dial tone. I was like, I had to look around, press a line like to get it going.
Yeah.
So
I've not used one of those.
Crazy
in 10
enough,
years.
working a little bit in the telecom industry, that is actually, as of like 2020, that's illegal now. For you have to dial out for things now because there was a law passed because somebody. This may be a gruesome story. Now that I think about
Hold
it.
on, what do you mean it's illegal to dial out?
No,
To have to
force
press a
someone
button,
to have to do
to
something.
have to press a button to dial out because
It's probably a
there was
safety thing.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a kid whose mom was being like attacked by like an ex-husband or ex-boyfriend.
So I should just have a dial tone.
And
Right.
she tried.
Well, what better
to-
person to sue than a Las Vegas casino?
There you go. Well,
Las
she tried,
Vegas.
and I don't think there's any parameters to this. Like, I think this is like they need to know about this. They do. So, but the
Sam,
girl tried to call
this could
911.
change everything. for
Really?
you.
Do you realize how rich we could be
And
starting
actually-
tomorrow?
And actually, now that I think about it, the law may just be with 911. It may if you're
Oh,
calling
I'm
'cause-
telling you, you would have had to have pressed an outline for 911 on that
Really?
phone. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you would have been in trouble, you
They're
would have just had to
violating
hit that
Carey's
person.
law.
You would have just had to hit that person with the receiver.
What's it called? Carey's
it's
Law?
called Carey's law. Yeah,
There was
it's
bad for
recent though. Not everybody. That was kind of part of my job was
They-
like making sure people knew about that too.
There was actually billboards as we were going back to the airport, and I may say this slightly wrong, but basically somebody had a all these lawyers had websites called fellinahotel.com.
Fell in a hotel.
It's
Fell
like,
it.
I mean, how many people are
God, dude.
leaving that town broke? Like, all right, that's my last ditch effort. So I'm going to just say I fell down.
The fail. Oh, I got to tell you guys
I
about
never
this.
thought about that disgruntled. Like I didn't win anything. Let me just break my leg.
So, speaking of fail, this reminded me of something. So, Jorge and I went quail hunting this weekend
Woo!
on Saturday, and we had this guy with us. We went with a man named Sid, who's in his 70s. He's a retired Gordon County sheriff from Gordon County, Georgia, which is a kind of a North Georgia, very rural.
Is that next to Hazard County where the Duke boys were?
No, it's a different state. But anyway, this and this guy's really, really a good guy. A couple things to kind of set the stage for how like old school this guy was. A lot of times you'll go bird hunting and you'll get somebody with a dog and they've got like electric GPS collars on
Right.
them, and they'll go track them, and when the dogs are out of sight, if the dogs stop moving, it's a pretty good indication they're on point, and they've like pointed out a pheasant or a quail or something. Well, this guy didn't have any of that. He just had a bunch of bells around his dog's neck, and his dog's name is Annie. And he's like, boy, Annie is a good old dog. And he said, now her aunt Shug, that was a bird dog. He was like, I probably took down 5,000 birds with
Wow.
old Shug. But we're way out in the, so we were actually hunting kind of in this pine thicket. I mean, it was like,
Hold on, shout out to the outfitter.
yeah, it was down in North Georgia. It was called Noontutla Creek Farms. And we've gone there several times.
Yep.
I mean, we love this place. We love the family that run it. We just love everything about it. And so a couple things that struck me from this time being there with Sheriff Sid. The first really, really cool thing was that, remember I told you, he didn't have a lot of like modern stuff, no GPS on the dog. At one point we were, it was a cold morning. It was kind of humid and rainy, but the rain had stopped. So it was like a low-lying fog.
Yes.
I mean, it was just so beautiful being out in this pine thicket. You had the Noontula Creek over to the right when we were walking, and you could hear it, and it was just beautiful. And so he's like, we were and we were having trouble. Like we wound up shooting about 20 birds, which was good. But Annie was doing great, but these birds were not covying together. They had split and broken up, and they were all over these woods. And so, at one point he's like, guys, let's just stand still for a second. And we stood there and we were just listening, not saying anything. And he just starts whistling, and these quail start like calling back to him.
No way.
And he was like, whistling like through his teeth. I can't whistle. I don't know if you guys can, but this like high pitched shrill whistle. But it would be like two really short bursts, and then you'd hear way out in the distance, all over. And at one point he'd do that, and he'd look at Jorge, and he goes, "Jorge, where do you think that quail is?" And Jorge's like, "I think it's over there." So we'd all walk over there, and Andy would bust him out. I mean, it was a lot of fun. But when you said failure, you said fail in the hotel or something like that. It reminded me of this. We were just talking about his career, in law enforcement, and he was like, I never, thank God, I never had to take a life, never lost a man, the whole time I was sheriff. And he said, I said, I bet you've seen a lot of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I have. And he's like, but the one thing that struck me the most, and he said, and his granddad was a sheriff, and like his uncle was a sheriff, like he had a whole. And he said we'd sit around and we'd share these stories, and he was like, and my granddad had a phrase for it. He would say, "It's just a failure to do right." And he's like, I just saw it over and over, and the same men doing the same stuff over and over. He's like, it's just a failure to do right. He's like, what's right. You just fail to do it. Wow. So I thought that was pretty impactful to me.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that fail. Like something fell.
Something fell?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to tell that story.
Oh, okay, never.
No, there's you hear you've heard the what stays and what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. There's something else that happened on that quail hunting trip that I can't tell on this podcast.
Okay.
But someone almost fell.
Just a little close
with
call.
birdshot. With birdshot in their neck.
Oh yeah.
I'll just say that. that was a scary thing, but
and that's not a threat.
Overall, did you hit the clay range?
We did, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, and we actually went with Brian. I think that was his first time shooting.
Brian,
he loved it. It was good.
Well, I hate I missed it, man. That was that's always a trip that I look forward to, and I always enjoy cooking you guys omelets.
I know.
So how did you survive? What'd y'all eat?
We did. Tara made a big casserole with like eggs and potatoes and onions and that kind of stuff. And so it was in like a big metal, not a metal, but like one of those disposable trays that you buy.
Yeah.
And we popped it in the oven, and it was good. And she also made like a blueberry casserole kind of thing. It was good. But yeah, we did miss the homemade omelets to order.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go because my daughter's birthday party was scheduled that weekend, and I kind of didn't get a say about it, so it was like, oh no. But I was thinking about that because I was thinking about coming up Saturday night, but I just decided that would just be too crazy, just to maybe have like 4 hours of time with everybody. But I remember thinking, well, and Yule's not even going, so his omelets aren't going to be there. So
Well, how was the birthday party?
It was good. We went to Red Bank Bounce. Just shout out that place. It's like
that's right down the street from me.
Yeah, it is. It's just like essentially they bought a bunch of inflatables and set them up inside, which is really nice for rainy days and just days that are not as nice.
Not a trampoline park though. No trampolines.
No. Yeah, it's no trampolines. It's just all inflatable.
Okay.
They're good inflatables though. They're like pretty interesting. My
I was just curious,
it.
because there's a place that the kids can go with all trampolines around here. My wife took the boys.
Is that the one over on Hamilton Place?
Maybe they went for something. I can't even remember. I wasn't with them, but I was just thinking back to one of our conversations about trampolines at home. and how dangerous they are and all that. Think of the liability of saying, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to let the general public come in here and bounce on a trampoline. I mean, everybody signs a waiver. Like, if you die or get paralyzed or something.
Busted my spleen on trampoline.com.
Hey, maybe that's there's a business for that. It's hard to believe they don't make you sign waivers at those hotels.
Yeah.
That if you fall, I just hate all the waivers you have to sign these days. It's just like,
I've gotten to where it's almost like a game. I just try to push it off and then just never sign it. I never signed the waiver.
You took my money, but I'm not signing your waiver.
There's a friend of mine. I have a friend of mine in Knoxville named Travis. He's a lawyer, and he also works at a secret government agency that I'm affiliated with in some ways. He was arguing with his brother the other day. And they got into some kind of argument about something. I can't remember what it was about, but he was saying that he got really mad, kind of lost his temper with his brother, and he goes, well, maybe if I just didn't sit around all day and rent out inflatables to people, I'd have more time to do stuff. And I'm like,
so he thought you did?
No, he's talking to his brother. Oh. Apparently his brother owns a business renting out those inflatables. And I was like, well, dang, Travis, that actually probably is not a bad business to have. I mean, you probably can make some good money doing that.
Travis, now you sound like the dumb one.
Well, I'll tell you what, you see a lot of stuff in Las Vegas. And
tell us about your Vegas
One
trip.
thing you don't see is the sunshine. Like, we went to work, this conference, you get up in the morning, you go to a exhibition hall, and I wear a Fitbit. So the first day we were there, I looked down, I think I'd done 12,000 steps that day. I did 7,000 getting from my room to the convention hall. I mean, it was like, it is so big and spread out.
And you just walked?
You have to walk. Yeah.
You can't get a taxi or an Uber?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
Once I walked through the entrance of that hotel, airport, Uber, walk into the hotel, I didn't see the sun for like 3 days.
7,000 steps. Isn't that like 2.5 miles or something?
Easily.
3 miles?
I think the 14,000 was some. I think that was like, it calculated that as something like 5.2 miles that I walked one day. And it is just the most spread out. The place is gorgeous. And it didn't occur to me until we came back. I didn't see one Christmas decoration in the whole hotel. Like
they call it the City of Sin for a reason.
I guess so, man.
They don't even celebrate Christmas.
But there was not even like a tree, any ribbon, candy cane stuff. Like we think Opryland Hotel is all decked out, for Christmas.
They're probably decked out in August.
And I didn't even, it didn't even occur to me, because I will tell you, just the visual of this place is stunning. We stayed at the Venetian, which is mimicked on the city of Venice. And
Venetian.
I actually called home, and I was just kind of talking about it. I said, we're going to do a gondola ride. They've got the gondola that goes through there, and I said, I'm going to do the gondola ride. And Jill goes, well, when in Rome? I said, no. Venice. But
that's so funny.
It is just sprawling and spread out, and everything is just ornate. And the gondolier actually told us, I think he said that it took them 8 years to build that property. And I think he said it was to the tune of around $3 billion to build it. And which I was surprised. I thought it would have been more than that. But so, no, we were there working a medical conference with about 4,200 providers from across the U.S. and some, as I mentioned, outside the U.S., but mostly U.S. doctors. And it was just gigantic. I mean, just a huge, huge place. Even the convention hall that we were set up in, if just to walk from one end to the other, you're just like, oh, I got to walk again. Your feet are just killing you the whole, and you stand the whole day.
Yeah. I used to do, with another job, I used to do some trade shows, and that was the worst part about the trade. It's just standing.
Yeah.
Just my feet.
We ate some good food. Great restaurants there. And and I will say this, they did a pretty good job. They had a mix of, pretty good, like, if you wanted expensive stuff, steak, seafood, that was readily available. But then they also had like food court kind of stuff.
Cool.
Not like McDonald's, but they had, little Mexican places or sandwich places if you wanted to. Gelato. I didn't get any, but they had a really good looking gelato thing.
Nice.
So it was a neat experience. But when it was all over, like we're like, okay, this is our last day. We're done. We've packed up. We've shipped our stuff back. We had, I think that was around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and our flight wasn't till midnight. So I was like, what do you guys want to do? Let's go. Do you want to just go walk and see some of the sights? Yeah. And we walked out, and we're like, oh. Outside, like it didn't even occur to you not been outside
because the conference was in the hotel y'all were staying in. Yeah, so y'all were just always
correct.
There. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we were. Let's see, we got there Thursday evening, and this was, what day is today?
Tuesday.
This is Sunday.
You still have jet lag.
So Thursday evening, we were, we walked in and we walked out to see the sunshine and smell fresh air on Sunday evening. So 3 days just without even smelling outside air.
That's
crazy. You realize how ironic this is to be part of a medical conference when you don't even get outside to breathe fresh air.
Yeah, well, first off, they pump oxygen into the casinos.
But it's not oxygen.
In the Venetian, though, a lot of these, the ceilings, a lot of them were painted like a sky, like a blue sky with clouds. And speaking of smell,
it's like a fish tank.
Speaking of smell, you can't go anywhere in Las Vegas without a strong odor of marijuana.
Really?
Like
no way.
Everywhere.
Really?
How do you know what it smells like? Is my question.
Yeah.
Do you not know what marijuana smells like?
No. How would I know what that smells like?
I've literally never done marijuana. I know how it smells.
But you know what it smells like.
We used to live in an apartment in Eastridge, so we definitely know. It was just like the whole hall.
Eastridge, the marijuana capital.
Let me just tell you, if somebody's smoking and it doesn't smell like a cigarette and it smells like a skunk.
Yeah, okay, skunk. That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah,
like a good smelling skunk.
Is it weird that I actually don't mind the smell of a skunk? Like if I'm driving and I'm like,
you just breathe it all in.
It's just, to me, it's just like,
hey, well, then you would have loved the airports at the bathroom. I mean, the bathrooms at the airport there in Vegas as well.
Okay, forget it. I'm sorry I even brought that up. Golly.
So I think I get what you're saying, because you're saying because with the skunk, there's two parts to the smell. There's like the base smell, like what it smells like, and then there's the assaulting, like something
I'm
about
not
it
talking about
burns your
a
nose.
Skunk spray me like on my clothes. You know what I'm talking about? But just like as you're driving in the distance.
Well, even when you're driving,
you're
you
just
can
saying
still...
it doesn't bother you that bad.
Yeah.
Let's see what
I
else.
even like weird smells. Like,
I will say one of the other interesting things. Let's see, in Vegas is there is no dress code. Yep, no dress code. You gentlemen don't have the luxury that I do, but I thank the good Lord that I don't have a daughter that I have to manage around that one day. There's just got to be a lot of men thinking,
even like in a, because you were in probably a nice place.
Oh, it's
with
one of the
business
best,
people, so it's not like you're out on the strip or something. You know what I mean? Unless you went to the strip.
Well, I mean, the hotel is on the strip. No, we didn't, like I said, we didn't even go outside. We were talking about going. I think there's an area there called Fremont Street that's kind of older Vegas, but it's very touristy and has a lot of stuff. And we talked about doing that, but we were just. It was like literally, if I have to walk one more step, I like just to get to get in an Uber. But yeah, so we didn't go in it, but. No, the hotel is on the strip. And so, and in fact, the reason we had even walked out is I said, let's go and look at, we were right across from the Mirage and Treasure Island, and the Mirage does a big volcano show, and then Treasure Island does a big pirate show, and they're free. Wow. You just go out there and stand and watch them. But we walk out at like 5 o'clock, and it's like show starts at 7. We're like, nah. So we just went back in and ate and had a coffee. So, but.
Sounds like the most boring Las Vegas trip ever.
Yeah, this was not a hangover kind of, movie.
Where was
Vegas.
The gun running? Where was the, mountains of gold?
Yeah, they had them. They had all the gold. Hey, I wanted to tell you guys something else. If you've not done this, on the plane, I on the way back, I was just asleep. But on the way there, I downloaded some movies and stuff to watch to try to pass some time. So I read about half a book, and then I got bored reading, so I started watching this movie. Have you guys ever seen The Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
I have seen clips of it.
What?
It looks hilarious.
It was, first off, it's a Coen Brothers movie, so that'll tell you something. Yeah. It is. I can't believe I've not watched it, and I thought it was a whole movie of him, the guy, and it's these vignettes. So it's like a few little short stories.
Okay.
Oh.
The whole and they're not related. They're all Western themed, kind of, but it is. I mean, just watch it. It is so good.
The one that I've seen is like he's like kind of like this nerdy singing cowboy kind of looking guy.
Yes. So that's what I'm trying to tell you is don't think you're going to have to watch a whole movie about that. It's a small dose, but it is so good.
But what's the name of the whole movie?
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Okay, and so are the other vignettes? Are they good too? Or just,
yes.
Okay.
I mean, they're great. They're just great.
Okay.
Not all humorous.
Yeah.
I mean, like that first one's funny. The second and third one are kind of not funny at all.
Kind of not funny.
Now that I'm thinking about it, they're pretty doggone sad. But it's just well done.
Yeah.
So you'd really, I think you'd appreciate it.
You know what I went back and watched? I had a bunch of laundry. I had like a mountain of laundry to fold. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and watch some Lord of the Rings extended editions. And I went back and watched those. Those are such great movies, especially after watching the modern like Rings of Power. And I didn't hate Rings of Power, but it just wasn't the same.
I've never seen any of them.
Oh, no?
Is that the J.R.R. Tolkien stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've read the books. I
read the
Have
Hobbit.
you not seen the movies, James?
No, I don't. Maybe with the kids.
The Peter Jackson one.
No, I haven't.
Just if you watch them with the kids, can I be one of your kids? Can I come over and watch it with them?
Well, I read The Hobbit, and
James,
I read The Hobbit
make
to
me
the
some
kids when they were
popcorn.
little.
Yeah, I'll complain.
And then I read it again, and then I read the first of the trilogy, and I got halfway through the second one, and I was like, nah.
Two Towers?
I'm like, yeah.
I cannot believe James. I literally thought James would be the biggest Lord of the Rings fan on the planet.
I was just like, nah. If they get the ring in there,
Hey, and they probably do. I remember reading The Hobbit like in high school,
and I've heard the Hobbit's
and I really liked it.
The Hobbit's good.
I thought The Hobbit was good.
Movie was horrendous. Don't even bother. In my opinion,
Bilbo Baggins, right?
Yeah.
Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, The Hobbit was really good.
I just remember the concept of second breakfast. I always thought that was
It's
cool.
the best because there's that scene where Aragorn's like, "Gentlemen, we don't," because I haven't read the books. I've just watched the movie, so I'm one of those guys. And Aragorn's like, "Gentlemen, we don't stop till nightfall," and they're like, "But what about breakfast?" It's like, "We had breakfast." It's like, "But what about second breakfast?" He's like, I don't think he knows about second breakfast, Pip.
Yeah, I almost feel like an outcast and a reject from our like society for not like geeking out on Lord of the Rings, and I appreciate
their
contribution. I appreciate their their well written novels. I get it.
Yeah, they're well.
I'd rather read something else.
So I can make a lot of enemies here. I have never in my life, start to finish, watched any start to finish Star Wars or Star Trek stuff.
Neither.
Start to finish.
Now I loved Star Wars when I was a kid. I watched those original, and I thought they were good.
I just never could make it through.
Not even the original Star Wars.
I think I've even tried.
The one I'll tell you, if you go back, I tried to get my wife to watch Star Wars at one point, and it's like I started on number 4, and I was like, I shouldn't have started.
Wait, The New Hope, like the actual real Star Wars.
Yeah.
That is
it's good.
The movie though.
It's good if she liked it, but it starts slow. Besides the first scene's really good.
It starts out with a battle.
I don't.
No one died. There was no legs flying. It was terrible. We were so bored.
Now I'm so confused about.
No, you just realize
order.
the pacing is very interesting.
Okay, but the order, no, I don't even want to think about it.
I know.
Like that's the problem. It's like if I've got to think about. Listen, let me tell you. I grew up in an era that you watched Friday the 13th. And then you watch Friday the 13th Part 2. And then you watch Friday the 13th, part 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to like 13.
Right.
Like you didn't have to go back and
There wasn't a prequel.
no, like
There wasn't a Jason's Revenge prequel or
listen,
something like
I
that.
could have appreciated that had they simply come in order.
I
don't
agree
get
with
it.
you. And I
I don't
remember
get it.
watching The Godfather, and then Godfather Part 2 is actually a prequel. And I remember being like, my head's exploded here.
yeah.
But Godfather Part 2 is probably one of the best masterpieces of all time.
Well, it's
Godfather's
a prequel.
great. Part 2 is off
Is
the
it bad?
charts.
Well, part
Oh, no,
two,
it's
part
good.
two,
Oh, my
part
God,
2 is
so
set
good.
in the present, but also goes back and references that
Right.
old time.
It's like
that is
showing-
a great movie.
so
yeah.
good.
We have to watch that because I watched The Godfather for the first time with James at the Tivoli. It was awesome. Great.
When I lived in Tuscaloosa, I think I'd graduated college already. I was working, and one weekend I rented all 3 from the Blockbuster
nice.
store, and so about 15 hours of investment in watching those. Maybe
Yeah.
not that. That may be an exaggeration, but I watched all 3 of them in one weekend. I don't remember anything about the third one,
The third one's garbage. It's
but the second one,
terrible.
yeah, you're right.
the
That's
second
gold.
was amazing.
How about Narnia? Do you guys read the books?
Yeah, that's
I know that was abrupt.
yeah. I've read all those. I think I've read pretty much everything C.S. Lewis has ever written.
Oh,
I mean, probably for the most part.
wow.
There might be a few things I haven't, but
I have definitely not.
Till We Have Faces, it's epic,
Oh,
beautiful.
So I
First Mere
can't. All right,
Christianity.
so I'm a little late to the party on C.S. Lewis.
All right.
So first off, the Narnia stuff, I've never even. I couldn't tell you a character in it.
Oh, it's
Is
really-
Narnia
What?
Terabathea? Is
Hey,
that one?
You,
All right.
yeah, you need to.
Okay, but I always thought of C.S. Lewis as a kind of a religious author.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is Tolkien.
So C.S. Lewis, I'll say this. I'll help you out. So there's kind of 2 components to C.S. Lewis. There's his nonfiction,
Right.
which is really good. Like,
And
you know,
I'm trudging through one of those right now, by the way. I mean, trudging through.
I know. I will say I've read some of his nonfiction. Doesn't quite read the same way as his fiction.
I'm
He's
reading-
got several series, but Narnia is the most famous one.
I'm
and
reading
it's a
his book
children's
right now. I think it's called Surprised by Joy. It was
No, I
kind
haven't
of
read that.
it's kind of his childhood. It goes over his childhood from kind of going. I think what we're is going to get at eventually is he starts out kind of like he grows up in a church basically. I think in a family that goes to church off and on. Maybe I can't remember, but he believed in God. And then there comes
Gotcha.
a time that he's just kind of like puts it all out. Like he kind of, I think he becomes agnostic, if not atheistic. And then I think he's going to finalize it in the third part of this book of how he,
Well, why
it's
did you
going
pick
to be.
that book? Why that book to start off with?
My wife had bought some at an estate sale, and they
Okay.
were all just sitting there, so I picked that one up. And but yeah, like it's, I don't know.
I think if you're getting into C.S. Lewis from a fiction storyteller, I would start with the Screw Tape Letters,
Oh,
outstanding, and then go into that space trilogy. Out of the
Is it
Silent
good?
Planet,
I've read some of it.
Perelandra, That Hideous Strength, outstanding.
really.
Oh, it's so good.
All right, I'm going to give him a little bit more of a chance.
Do this with Narnia. This is going to be maybe heresy, but I don't recommend reading the books as your first introduction. To
You know
Narnia.
what? I don't think you have to worry about it.
That's good.
Because you can't read.
What you should do with the Narnia Chronicles, and you guys can do this too, listeners, is if you haven't read them, just read the books later. It's honestly, my parents read, or my dad read the books to me, but then the ones that really stuck in my mind is the Focus on the Family radio theater versions are,
Yeah, that is true.
they're almost verbatim. But it cuts out, like, Lewis is kind of weird. He'll like, I'm reading the books to my kids at night, and we're on Prince Caspian, and he'll just throw random little sidebars in there, and it kind of is distracting. Like, I don't know if C.S. Lewis had ADHD or something, but it was just like, he'll be like, it's not bad, but it's just,
and then Polly got a bottle of lemonade.
and it's
The
like,
lemonade.
that was the lemonade I referenced in my last book. Like, he'll throw little things
Yeah.
like that in there. It's kind of funny.
So, my buddy Chad Hester that I played some golf with, and he's the hunter. So he kind of, I think he's the one that first discovered I'd not really gotten into C.S. Lewis, and I think he was nearly shocked. And he says, I'm aghast at the moment. So he had me, all right, here's how Chad approached this, and then here's what I did. He asked me about the book Mere Christianity.
Okay.
Have you not read that kind of thing? And I was like, no, I've not.
I don't know if I've read that.
And then he gets me, he says, you need the book, but he then, hold on, I'm telling this backwards. Maybe it was Mere Christianity. Anyway, apparently there was a collection of radio addresses that C.S. Lewis was commissioned to do.
That's where
Over the
Mere Christianity
BBC.
came from.
What
Those BBC broadcasts that led to that book.
Okay,
No
okay.
way.
Yeah.
So he basically turns me on to this YouTube channel called C.S. Lewis Doodle.
That's a
And-
good web channel. I've seen that.
Okay,
That's a
and
YouTube
but he also tells me, and this is back to my Star Wars kind of thing. He says the only problem is he says the only problem is being that the videos for the entire book don't yet exist, and you have to choose the sequence carefully if you want to match the order they were presented in print. And I'm like, man, like this is just too much. So I ended up
It's too much work. I'm not doing this.
I think what I ended up doing though was I just ended up listening to the audiobook Mere Christianity, and I just listened to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking that's what that is going to be. That YouTube thing is just a repeat of that. In some
Well,
way.
so it's like a blackboard, and then it's like white chalk drawings, and it like
Yeah.
sketches out the scenes. It's really neat.
Wow.
And they do it like really, like they'll just talk about the scene, and then they'll sketch it out. So you've got this like visual in front of
I
you.
love those.
It's pretty
kind of
neat.
things.
So I will say this: C.S. Lewis was an extremely well-spoken, intelligent thinker. Like the way he makes a point in that book, and I don't agree with him on all doctrinal areas on that at all. The way he explains things is pretty like, okay, for someone that had no idea of the concept, he has a way of bridging that so that they're like, oh, that that makes a little bit of sense. But
Yeah, I like your idea about the focus on the family radio. I think
It'll make you fall in love.
and
with the
we
story.
don't do this perfectly because we we're always so busy with the kids have different things, school or whatever. But just having your kids in the living room. I mean, just kind of picture this scene. You've got like your fireplace going. You've got the lights kind of dim. Maybe you got some Christmas decorations up, and everyone's just kind of sitting around together listening to one central thing. We don't really do that.
listen,
Or not
you're
even
right.
watch.
Nobody does that anymore.
And it was just kind of quiet, and you just you got this book on, and you're just listening to it. I mean,
That's-
go try it. I mean,
I've done that a couple times with my daughters. We've done a puzzle or something, and we'll listen to one of the radio theater, and
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed that. Like when I just couldn't give a lot of energy to
well,
my
Tara's
kids.
done that a
let's just
lot,
do
where
that.
she'll
So,
actually just read a whole
yes.
novel, and it'll be a couple and an hour here and there, where everybody will just be sitting around, and she'll
I
just
love
read, and the kids will just be kind of sitting at foot listening. And
That's the best.
You know what?
It
I think
is,
I
It's
just
so
want to
good.
tell you your books that the Narnia stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be dismissive of I'm never going to read that. It's not that I'm I'll never read that because I'm above that. It's not that. don't get the wrong attitude. I'll tell you what happens in my mind is I recall when I first started to love reading, and I got hooked on Stephen King stuff. I love him. He's a masterful storyteller. But now in my adult life, I'm just there's a catalog of books that I want to read, and it's the opportunity cost of time. If I'm reading this, it means I'm not reading this, and I'm losing that time. And there's just stuff I think that's more valuable to read than, and that's why I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. I have too much else to do and to, be invested in
yeah,
than let that time get away.
you have
And
to be careful. You have to guard your
Yeah.
time. I get it.
Yeah.
The grayer my hair gets, the closer I'm real,
Yeah.
the hourglass.
We ought to do a podcast where we each bring in the books that we think would be a valuable use of your time to read and why.
Oh, man.
Let's do
Yeah.
that.
I like that.
I mean, this would
And maybe
it
read
would
an
it would
excerpt
be
from
unusual
it.
for us because it would require a little bit of prep, before we get here, which we never
What?
do.
We don't prep.
Are you talking school, prep school? I'm sorry.
Prep.
Well,
what does that
What,
word
what
mean?
even is prep?
Yeah, I like that idea. Or hey,
And we should read our favorite excerpt from one of them. I think in
Yeah.
the most dramatic way we can.
Yeah,
listeners,
right on.
if you have suggestions on books that are a must read, comment. Give it to us in our review.
And I'll say, listeners, we're going to be communicating solely through Facebook and Twitter now. So as far as updates for the podcast and stuff.
Are we not going to communicate on the podcast anymore?
No, we're just not even going to do. We're not even going to do the podcast. We're just going to. It's just going to be a Facebook and Twitter.
We're gonna.
It's going to be a Facebook about a podcast.
Episode 20 is going to be
that doesn't exist anymore.
Episode 20 is going to be our last one, and then from then on, it's all Facebook.
It's all Facebook.
No, I do love that idea.
Pyramid,
though. Give us
pyramid marketing scheme.
Give us some review. Give us 5 stars. Tell everybody you know, and put in the comments on Facebook. What are some books that changed your life? Some books that you read and you're like, I'll never be the same after reading this.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them on the show. If we haven't read them, maybe we'll read one. I mean, you won't.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. All right. Well, I think the sun's up now, and it is time to go about the day. All right. Let's do it.
All right. See y'all.
The Have Y'all Heard About This podcast is produced by Play It By Ear Audio. Leave us a review, like us, rate us, or subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use. If you wish to contact us or you have a suggestion for the show, email us at hyhatpodcast@gmail.com.